Which champions are the most broken the longer games last? Through analyzing data combined with our Challenger players' input, we have compiled 10 of the best late-game champions for Season 13. Stall the game out past 30 minutes, and these champs will give you an incredibly high chance of winning. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. Starting things off with a couple top lane picks. First up is Gangplank. In games that last over 30 minutes, Gangplank players are winning over 53% of the time. It's the pure teamfight power of GP that contributes a ton to this stat. Hitting a single barrel with 3 items completed can obliterate the health bars of multiple targets, and it's one of the most satisfying combos in the game. Now that Gangplank is back to building crit instead of bruiser or lethality, those barrels hit even harder. When it comes down to fighting around objectives, there are few top laners who are more powerful than GP. Gangplank's ultimate combined with barrels offers so much zone power and the ability to blow up the entire enemy team in an instant. The build to run on Gangplank is an Essence Reaver into Quick Blade 2nd and Prowler's Claw or Gale Force 3rd. Make sure to grab First Strike as the keystone and roll with Futures Market so that you can accelerate into those item spikes even faster. Recently buffed in 13.3 and a champion absolutely feared on her level 16 spike is Kayle. Kayle players that can drag games out past 30 minutes are winning 54% of the time. An even crazier stat is that Kayle players only win 46% of the time in games that end prior to 20 minutes. These stats give us a really good representation as to how important it is for Kayle to scale in order for her to be the most impactful. Upon hitting level 16, Kayle gains 100 attack range along with permanent bonus attack speed and movement speed. The extra range and movement speed makes the champion way more shifty and drastically amplifies Kayle's teamfight power. With such a clear win condition to play towards, it's almost as if you were playing a different game than everyone else. Collecting as much experience as possible and scaling up to that level 16 is a difficult task, but comes as close to guaranteeing a win as you can get. The build for Kayle is a Nashor's Rush into Riftmaker 2nd and Rabadon's 3rd. Pick up Lethal Tempo as the keystone with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Resolve Tree is best for secondaries with Bone Plating and Overgrowth. When you think of Maokai, you don't really think of this late game monster, but with the way he's being played right now, he absolutely is. Maokai players are winning at a 58% clip in games that last over 30 minutes. The most optimal way to play Maokai jungle is with a Q max first into E second. Since you're maxing E out second, it takes until level 13 to have the spell with all 5 points in it. With E maxed out, combined with Maokai having completed at least 2 core items, the zone control around objectives is disgusting. If the enemy team does not have a tank who can soak sapling damage, there's very little counterplay to a fed Maokai. Saplings aren't the only tool that allows Maokai to have immaculate objective control though, as his ultimate adds another layer of zone. If you can arrive at objectives before the enemy and set up saplings in entrance brush, the enemy will have a very difficult time contesting, which will lead to free objectives for your team. The core build for Maokai is Demonic Embrace Rush into Liandry's 2nd and Shadow Flame 3rd. If you want maximum damage from Sapling Poke, then grab First Strike as the keystone. For stronger all-in teamfight power, Phase Rush is a perfectly viable option as well. As a marksman in the jungle, Graves is a champion that scales better than the majority of junglers. In games lasting over 30 minutes, Graves players win 52% of the time. This may seem a bit low, but when you take into account that Graves' overall win rate is only 48%, a 4% spread is quite big. Other than his smoke screens, Graves completely lacks any impactful utility, so item spikes are so important for him. Without those items, the champ is pretty useless, so the longer games last, the more Graves is able to ramp up. Once you complete a couple of items, Graves can begin nearly one-shotting squishies from auto attacks alone. The armor stack from E also makes Graves insanely tanky, so the skirmish potential of the champion is extremely high. The standard core build for Graves is an Umbral Glaive Rush into Eclipse 2nd and Collector 3rd. For runes, pick up Fleet Footwork with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Zombie Ward and Treasure Hunter are for secondaries. One champion I'm sure would be on everyone's list when it comes down to a late game god is Kassadin. Sporting a 56% win rate in games that last over 30 minutes, there are few who can rival that kind of stat line. Kassadin is similar to Kayle in the sense they both have absolutely incredible level 16 spikes. Kassadin's R cooldown is only 2 seconds at max rank, and in reality it's even lower when you factor in ability haste. In the clown fiesta that solo queue is, level 16 Cass is so difficult for the enemy team to coordinate around. Cass can get around the map so quickly, set up in the fog of war, and one-shot any squishy that walks in alone. The build for Kassadin is a Rod of Ages Rush into Archangel's 2nd and Zanya's or Rabadon's 3rd. Run Electrocute as the keystone with Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, and Ultimate Hunter. Presence of Mind and Tenacity are for secondaries. It's the Cass duo as our 2 late-game mid-lane picks as Cassiopeia locks a spot. With Rod and Archangels coming back as a core build for Cassio, it's given her even more power 2 items onward. Cassio players are winning 54% of the time in games that last over 30 minutes. minutes. There are so many ways for you to be impactful with Cassio in late game situations. The DPS power from Cass E spam makes her an incredibly strong duelist. Arguably even more powerful is Cassio's AoE crowd control potential from R and W. With so many champions having a dash these days, the W ground effect might as well be an ultimate ability with how influential it can be in a 5v5 fight. An R into W combo on a melee champion trying to dive in makes them absolutely useless. 3-item core for Cass is Rod of Ages into Archangel's 2nd and Rylai's 3rd. For runes, roll with Conqueror followed by Presence of Mind, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Mana Flow and Transcendence are optimal secondaries. One ADC who has a definitive gap between their early and late game power is Vayne. Vayne's laning power is so atrocious for the current meta that if you reach the 30-minute point, then you definitely deserve to win. Vayne players that can drag a game out past 30 minutes are winning 54% of the time. The average Vayne win rate, however, is only 48%, so it goes to show how terrible her pre-30 minutes is. The consistent true damage and immaculate kiting power are two of the main factors that allow Vayne to thrive later on. At 30 minutes onwards, most ADCs are very vulnerable to dive champions, but Vayne has ways to deal with them due to her stealth, condemn, and tumble. This is where Vayne can begin out-carrying the enemy ADC who lacks the same kind of peel power. Core build for Vayne is an Immortal Shield Bow Rush into Rageblade 2nd and Blade of the Ruined King or Wits 3rd. Lethal Tempo is the optimal keystone with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace, Run Conditioning, and Overgrowth for secondaries to further bolster that late game power. Hands down, the best ADC you can play for the current meta if you're looking for a scaling monster is Twitch. Twitch players are winning 54% of the time in games that run over 30 minutes. Unlike Vayne though, you can actually be a lot more impactful throughout the early to mid game. Twitch's carry power in a teamfight definitely spikes post 30 minutes, but he can still impact games prior to that point. Stealth from Twitch Q gives him incredible catch power, and it's so valuable for solo queue where players are way less coordinated. Most ADCs are very reliant on their team to find picks or engages to make plays happen, but Twitch can do it all on his own. All it takes is that one pick on the enemy squishy that walks up too far in a game over 30 minutes, and Twitch is the best ADC at capitalizing on that. Blade of the Ruined King Rush into Kraken Slayer 2nd and Hurricane 3rd is the 3-item core for Twitch. Grab Lethal Tempo as the keystone with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Taste of Blood and Treasure Hunter are the secondary runes. With Yuumi nerfed into the ground, hands down the best scaling enchanter for solo queue is Sona. The stat line for Sona has her winning over 55% of the time in games that go 30 minutes and beyond. Being an Archangel user, it takes a while for Sona to reach her potential due to the stacking element of the item. Once you have Archangels fully upgraded to Seraph's Embrace, the ability for you to spam out constant heals and speed boosts is so disgusting in teamfights. Sona's main weakness later in games has always been the fact she's very squishy and vulnerable champion, but now that Seraph's has a shield, she can survive dive champions a little easier, providing even more late game power. Sample core build for Sona is a Rod or Moonstone Rush into Archangel's 2nd and Staff of Flowing Water 3rd. For runes, run Aerie as the keystone with Mana Flow, Transcendence, and Gathering Storm. Optimal secondaries are Conditioning and Revitalize. Being another support that runs a tier setup, Taric spikes really hard with a couple items. Although his play rate is very low, Taric has actually held the highest win rate for any support over the past patch, and in games that last over 30 minutes, he's winning 55% of the time. Winter's Approach was recently buffed and is Taric's staple second purchase, which is a big factor in his recent rise in power. Once you get that Winter's Approach completed and fully upgraded into Fimbule Winter, Taric comes online really hard. All the added mana allows Taric to constantly spam Q in fights, giving him insanely strong skirmish power. The longer games last, the greater chance that one good Taric ultimate can single-handedly win you a game. If you have a strong engage comp, you can just pop R preemptively, have your team dive in, and melt the enemy before they can even deal any damage. Locket Rush into Winter's Approach 2nd and Night's Vow 3rd is the core Taric build. For runes, pick up Glacial with Magical Footwear, Biscuits, and Cosmic Insight. Conditioning and Revitalize are for secondaries. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about SkillCapped. So, we offer a 5-division rank-up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So there you have it guys, the 10 late game gods of Season 13. Thank you all so much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and we'll see you in the next one.